Hello, welcome everyone to this incredible live stream panel discussion. I'm looking over here at my screen. I see we've got comments that are already coming in. Hello, Carol. Thanks so much for being here. Teja, how exciting. Greetings from Slovenia. Teresa, good morning. Dean Hankey, the real magic man, is in the room. Mark, hello. Yes, it will start automatic. It has already started automatically. Here we are. This is the URL. You're in the right place. Adam, great to see you. Thanks for checking in. Look at all these awesome people here. I can't even get through everybody. It's so much goodness. It's Kelly. It's Jennifer. It's Donato. Hey, Donato. Hey, Dave. All right. So let's get started here. We all want to be paid professional speakers, right? We all want to earn respect for the thoughts in our head and get paid appropriately for our expertise. But it's hard. How do you get paid $5, $10, or $20,000 to speak for 45 minutes or an hour or 3 hours, right? Who are these people that are hiring speakers? Where do you find them? How do they find you? How do you convince them to fork over impossibly large sums of money to hear your thoughts? And who are you anyway? Well, that's what our panelists are going to help us learn today. The topic is getting paid to speak in 2023. So here's the plan. I'm going to introduce each of our panelists one by one, and I'm going to do it quickly so we can dive right into the good stuff. Then I'm going to get us kicked off with some questions. And speaking of questions, I have plenty of pre-written questions, but we would all rather answer your questions than mine. So starting now, and I think a lot of you have already started doing this, put your questions in the chat. We're going to prioritize your questions over mine and deliver as much value as possible in our 1 hour together. So go ahead, start popping your questions into the chat right now while I introduce the panelists. And of course, hello. My name is Brian Miller. Some of you know me that have come from my audience, but of course, many of you don't. By day, I'm a full-time professional keynote speaker on human connection. I've spoken across 5 continents, and I work with organizations and educators to help them build connected cultures where everyone feels heard, understood, and valued so that they can attract and retain top talent and generate sustainable repeat business. But by night, I also founded Conquer the Red Dot, which is a speaker training company where we work with experts and leaders to book, write, and deliver the talk of their dreams on that famous red dot. I'm talking, of course, about TED-style talks. But I got to where I am today because of people like these panelists that I'm going to introduce you to. And not actually people like these panelists, these actual panelists. So one by one, I'm going to introduce our panelists. I'm going to make sure everybody is actually here. I see we've got David, Lois, and Tim. I'm going to introduce David first. So, David, hello, welcome. How are you?
Hello, my captain. Pleasure to be here.
Great. David is a professional services sales expert who works with consultants, coaches, and speakers who want to land better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. David is also the author of the #1 business bestseller, Do It Selling, which just came out. And I don't even have a physical copy, but he's written a bunch of books, and I have Do It Speaking in my hands, which is magnificent. David's also the former chair of the National Speakers Association $1 Million Speakers Group. Thanks so much for being here, David. I can't wait to get into this.
Tons of fun.
Awesome. Next up, we've got Lois Kramer. Yay, Lois is here. Fantastic. Welcome, Lois. I know. Did you hear that applause in our heads, all of us?
I heard it. I heard it.
That's fantastic. During the heart of COVID, I was using a huge applause cue when I introduced myself on live streams. You had to do it. It was so awkward otherwise. Lois is an industry expert who works with speakers, consultants, and experts who want to book more business, make more money, and monetize their message. She is the author of Book More Business, Make Money Speaking, which I have right here. This really is a Bible of speaking, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. And I would love to introduce Tim, although he's pulling a magic trick. There he is. I see him, and Tim is gone. I don't see Tim. Hey! fantastic. Actually, I had no idea that was coming, and I thought Tim wasn't there. Tim, hey, he's got the applause.
Thank you.
Tim is the not only the founder of Get Speaking Gigs, the host of the Next Stage Speaking Summit, and the author of Get Speaking Gigs. He is also a $1 million corporate keynoter who has spoken in 48 states and around the world. He wrote the book Get Speaking Gigs. And I'm going to give a quick tour for everybody of how I met these people because it's actually relevant to the conversation we're having. I met Tim first of our panelists because in 2015, I gave a little TEDx talk that went mega viral by accident, and it launched me from being a full-time magician into being a speaker, and I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I would take the stuff that worked as a magician and apply that marketing and business strategy to speaking, and it did not work the way I thought it would. And then I bumped into Tim, who was also a former magician turned keynote speaker, who talked around
Brian, we're the same person. We were bound to meet.
It was unbelievable. We have like this similar topic, similar everything. Anyway, Tim is actually, Tim, you may not know this. You are the very first one-on-one coach I ever hired in my career. I had never hired a one-on-one coach before. I was shaking in my boots about the amount of money it costs to hire. What is it?
That's crazy because I never had a client before.
Well, there you go. There you go. No. So, yeah, and this was probably back in, I don't know, 2016, somewhere in 2017, somewhere in that, 2016 in that range. And working with Tim one-on-one, I have legitimately made hundreds of thousands, if not $500,000 in direct speaker income just from the work I did with Tim over a couple of months. And that is not to speak of the indirect work. And Tim introduced me to David. Tim introduced me to David's work. I got into his Facebook group. I bought his books. And a couple of years ago, about 2 years ago now, I did a one-on-one session with David where I was trying to build the consulting arm of my speaking company. And in 1 hour, David got me to what has now become hundreds of thousands of dollars in income in consulting and build that business, which is amazing. And Lois gave probably the best presentation I have ever seen about the speaking industry. I caught Lois at a National Speakers Association local event here in Connecticut, shout out to NSA Connecticut, and bought her book, and I come back to her book once every couple of months still to this day. It's magnificent. So all of that extended introduction is to say, many people get burned by the very sexy influencer, high marketing coaching programs out there. And these are the people you actually need to know about. And that's why I've assembled them here on this panel. These folks are the real deal, and we are going to kick it off because I'm tired of hearing myself speak. So I'm going to kick it off with one question, and then I'm going to go to the question in the questions in the chat. And the first question that I want to kick this off with is the first question that I want to kick this off with. I see you, David. I see you there. The first question I want to kick this off with is the question everybody wants to know first. So let's get out of the way. Everyone asks, how do I get paid to speak? But the thing is, you get the answer to the question you ask. And how do I get paid to speak is a vague question. And I'm guessing everybody here on this panel thinks there's a better question than that. So I'd love to go around and find out, what questions should speakers be asking instead of how do I get paid to speak? Tim, I know you've got thoughts on this. Do you want to kick us off?
Oh, man, do I ever. Hey, listen, you're absolutely right. The quality of the answers you get stems back to the quality of the questions that you ask. And that question, how do I get paid to speak, really needs to be broken down into multiple questions. It really isn't just do one thing, get one gig, and then rinse, lather, repeat. There is a system, there's an approach, and there are some boxes that you have to check. I think it's really 3 questions. And if I ask these three questions to any speaker, and depending on their answers, I know if they're busy or not. I know if they're getting gigs or not. I have a pretty clear indication, a pretty clear idea of what kind of business they're doing. And first and foremost, what are you selling? How is it packaged, right? So it's not just what do you speak about, but can you speak about what you speak about? And so many speakers really struggle with that, to be really clear, really concise. Brian, your offerings with Clarity Up, just say the thing, right? I mean, people can't just say the thing for whatever reason. They have a real hard time packaging the speech. People don't buy speakers, they buy speeches, right? In the terms of, you know, the high fee corporate keynoting that I do. And I want to frame all my answers just real quick. Take a moment. That's what I do. High fee corporate keynoting. I do associations, business audiences, right? On the main stage, keynote speaking. That's my jam. That's what I do. That's my world. High five-figure checks. And that's really what I think everybody listening to my answers can frame that within. I don't do schools. I don't do religious. I don't do government. I don't do any of that stuff. Now, the second question is, how are you packaged as a speaker? And the third questions are, what systems do you have in place that are generating leads, converting leads, and then creating a great customer experience? And those three questions, I cheat a little bit. The third question has three parts, but those are the three questions I think speakers should be asking, because when you zoom out 30,000 feet, the speaking business is really simple. You know, it's those three things.
I love, Tim, that you said when you zoom out 30,000 feet, the speaker business is really simple. I think this all got kicked off, David, because there was something in the forward or in the first chapter, the intro of your book. I think this is where this all started a couple months ago. I tagged you in it, where you had said basically all this comes down to just do the work. And so, David, I'm going to kick this over to you. What questions should speakers be asking?
So I'm going to have a little bit of a different opinion, and I'm sure Lois is going to have yet a different opinion again. This is going to be upsetting to some people, and I'm okay with that. Speaking is not a business. Speaking is a distribution method for your expertise. So I think it was Joe Calloway, and correct me here, Lois, if I'm wrong, or Tim, Brian, if you know. Joe Calloway said, if you package yourself as a speaker, it's like you're Coca-Cola and you're selling a 12-ounce can of Coke. Coke comes in all different sizes and shapes. You can get a fountain soda. You can get Coke at McDonald's. You can buy a 55-gallon drum of Coke syrup. It comes in a 2-liter bottle. You are not the 12-ounce can. You are the Coke. And it is different levels of depth, duration, and detail. I think it was Mark LeBlanc who first shared this soundbite. The way he talks about what he does, he says, you can buy me for an hour or up to a year. Anywhere. I can work with you and your group for anywhere from an hour up to a year. And that includes, of course, keynotes, seminars, coaching, consulting, mentorship, one-on-one, group programs, public events, private events, in-house events. So I like to put speaking in a much bigger box. Yeah. I don't think speaking is just keynoting for 10, 15, 20 grand. That's great. And if that's your business model, more power to you. But there are so many other distribution methods for your speaking-driven expertise. And so the questions, to answer the question is, what's my business model? What's my service model? What's my revenue model? What are the modes in which I'm a rock star? I'm an okay keynoter. I'm going to give myself a B- or a C+. But man, you give me 2 or 3 hours in front of a group, seminar, strategic work session, I will blow everyone on the planet away. Yeah. An hour, it's like there's thousands of people better than me for an hour. And then, hanging out for a year, that's not really my jam. So I sell 90-day, very intensive mentoring sessions, one-on-one. We have group programs that are not just me, but it's me and my team. So I've really decided, well, here's where I'm awesome, here's where I'm okay, and here's where I suck. And I try not to sell anything where I'm just okay or I suck. That's new in the last 5 or 6 years. I used to sell everything to everyone, anytime, in any way. And that was not successful financially. I wasn't having fun and they weren't getting value. So that's bad equation all across the board.
That's great, David. And that actually speaks to exactly the conversation we had about 2 years ago, where I was, because during COVID, we weren't coming out. COVID, plus I have a kid, a little toddler at home, and I've always been a keynoter, and I didn't want to be on the road, and I couldn't be on the road, the industry, and it didn't make sense to me to be keynoting virtually, even though I was doing some of it. And you helped me see, well, you can just be a speaker, but do it as consulting or do it as virtual workshops. It's just a different package of what you already do. And that light bulb is what allowed me to build this business and have freedom with my family now that I've got a little kid. So kudos to that. Lois, what do you have for us?
Well, I agree with my friend David. I think we're not speakers. We're purveyors of intellectual property. We're in the intellectual property business. That's the real business that we're in. And it's how many vehicles do you have to drive that intellectual property to the marketplace? To me, that is what you need, really, not just a speech. You need to be able to use multiple ways to drive that. And there are more now than ever. And look at virtual. Look at the way virtual blew up. If we all had just bought stock pre-COVID in Zoom, we would probably be on a beach having an umbrella drink right now. But, as far as selling speeches, the people who want to buy a speech from you are the people who want the outcomes you deliver. They don't want the processes. They don't really care about the way you speak. They don't really care about style. They're buying the outcomes that you will bring. They are hiring you, and this is really whether you're speaking, consulting, whatever way you're doing it. They're hiring you to move the needle in some way regarding performance, productivity, profits, productivity. So to me, the way to get paid to speak, which is what you had initially said, is to deliver great outcomes, find out who needs those outcomes, and then ask for money to do the job.
This is great. And I'm going to do this. Here's a follow-up question to the conversation we're having right now. I have no one in my personal world. So like, in other words, like I'm guessing in my immediate circle of influence who thinks like this. How do I change my own mental picture of who I am, what I offer, and how I offer it? Thank you, Mike. I think it's pronounced Mike. Who wants to take that?
Well, you need to be around people who are doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah.
You need to be around people who are doing what you seek to do. I think success is contagious. And I think it's motivating for us to be around people who are doing what we want to do. So you need to find associations, whether National Speakers Association is one, International Coaching Federation is another. There are lots of groups. Find a community and go within those larger groups and seek out a smaller community. I've been in mastermind groups over 20 years, the entire time I've been in speaking. They have helped me immensely move my business. When I have a big decision to make, I'll go with my mastermind group. They're kind of my pseudo board of directors. So I think it's up to us to make sure we're surrounding ourselves with the people that we need who can elevate the playing field for us.
Yeah, and Mike's asking the very, very practical follow-up question here. Is he's going to hold us all feet to the fire here. No theoretical answers. How do I actually find these people? I feel like Lois did answer that. They're like, Lois, you just tossed out so many names of specific groups. This is such an interesting question, right? The how do I actually find these people? They're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're just not the people you're already hanging out with.
That's right. Listen, go into a group like National Speakers Association. If there is a chapter in your city, join that chapter and get involved. If there is not a chapter in your city, there are chapters that you can join virtually and contribute virtually, connect virtually, and create mastermind groups. When I started my business, I was in a mastermind group of speakers here in St. Louis, where I live. That was the best option when I started. Of course, we didn't have computers back then. But now, it's so easy for us to gather. Look at us here today. This is not a hard rock to push uphill, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. I think that question's been answered here. I'm going to switch to one of these questions. Who wants to take the speaker agent question?
Oh, we're all going to go nuts on this one. We're all going to go crazy on this one. I will just kick it off because I know Tim and Lois and Brian, probably you too. Short answer is don't.
Yeah.
Not the answer.
Yeah.
Friends?
Yeah, David said don't. My answer is you're not going to get a speaker agent. There are celebrity speakers who are looking for good speaker agents who make a hell of a lot of money. Remembering agents work off a percentage of your fee. So they want to work with big money speakers. This is no surprise. The way to get started and the way to continue make sure that you are successful in your business is to take responsibility for the success of your business. Never, ever abdicate that responsibility to anyone else.
Yeah, I use the phrase, speak for yourself. Don't speak for an agent. Don't, you have to be able to speak for yourself and run your own business before anyone is ever going to sell it for you. Phrase I use a lot, speakers, bureaus will never want you until you don't need them. And that's just the long and the short of it. Let them call you, don't call them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll say one of the problems with, to Tim's point, one of the problems with speaker agencies and speaker bureaus is that you're not the client. And I think this is what people misunderstand, is that it's the venue or the organization that's the client. They come to a speaker bureau and say, we've got an event, we need a keynote, we need a plenary, we need a this, we need a that. And the speaker bureau comes back and goes, oh, here's 5 speakers that are on our roster that might fit your criteria. Take a look at their promo packages and let me know if you want to book any of them. And that's basically how it works. And so they're not working for you. They're not out there pounding. By the way, that's the job of a manager, a personal manager. And like, you can go hire a manager, but you got to usually, and there's different ways to do this, but you got to hire a manager. You're just paying them to do a job at that point, essentially, salary in some way. And they can go out and pound down doors and meet new people, and you can get PR people to do stuff like that. But bureaus are usually not going to get it done. And I'm not sure what aspect. I think Jennifer is just saying boom to all of that. So yeah, I would not spend time chasing down bureaus. And David, go ahead. You want to expand on this a little bit?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's just another way of saying what Lois and Tim already said, that, so agents and bureaus are different, number one. So a speaker's agent is more like a hired salesperson that works for you.
Sure.
To back up what Brian just said, absolutely. Bureaus do not work for speakers. Bureaus are not your salesperson. Bureaus are not your friend. The way bureaus talk about us, we're inventory. We're meat hanging on a rack. So that's not your best friend. And I totally love what Tim said about speak for yourself, sell for yourself. Because even if you hire a salesperson later on, you cannot delegate what you have no idea how to do. And, I think all 4 of us see this all the time, where there's some newbie speaker going, well, I'm just going to hire a salesperson to do all this work for me and take all this work off my plate.
That's right.
First thing any seasoned salesperson will ever ask, even in the interview. So give me a detailed breakdown of exactly how you've sold your speeches, exactly how you reach out to associations, exactly what do you say and what do you send? What does your sales process look like? And if your answers are staring at the screen going, they're gone. They're not going to sell for you because they're not idiots. They want to eat. And so if you want to eat, you have to learn to, I'm going to quote Tim, speak for yourself.
Well, and this is why a lot of speakers just don't make it in this business, because they don't understand that they have to be first and foremost salespeople. And you can give that responsibility to someone else. I would rather say you can abdicate that responsibility to someone else. But if you don't know how to sell intellectual properties, as David just said, how are you going to tell someone else to do it? And decision makers who are hiring you and thinking about bringing you in want to speak to the person with the intellectual property, the person who's going to be on the platform talking. And they're going to ask questions that a salesperson cannot answer about your expertise. So count on yourself.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that a little bit. So you can get yourself eventually, like I'm in a lucky situation now where I have representation. I was a magician for 10 years and had a name in that industry and a reputation. Now I've been a speaker for, 8 years since then, and I've got a reputation. So I have salespeople that take the first call with an inquiry to make sure it's a legit call. They make sure the details are going to work out, but then if the details are going to work out and it makes sense, Then they schedule a call and I jump on a call with the actual client to talk about the gig, because they have to talk to me. It doesn't matter how busy I am or how famous you are. At some point, they got to talk to you because they want to know what you're going to say on their stage in front of their audience. Like, you're getting precious, very precious time in front of their audience. They need to talk to the person who knows what's going on. Following up on this then, I think a lot of people are going to be wondering, that's great, but like, how you're all talking about selling. How do you actually pitch what you do to these people? How do you find these people? Like, where are these people? How do you find them? How do they find you? How do you find clients with money or get them to find you? I know, I mean, that's the question, right? But that's what everybody wants to know. So who wants to start? Like, maybe we can start here. Do you lead with message? Do you lead with personality? Do you lead with brand? What do you lead with?
I'll kick it off, and I think my colleagues here will agree and be able to go much deeper on this. Lead with relevance. No one gives a rat's behind about your brand, your message. I want to get my story. We've all heard this. I want to get my story out there. I want to share my message. Again, all of our heads are like, the arteries are popping. It's like, what's the relevance of what you deliver as far as a message, value, impact? What outcomes, what results do you deliver? What problems will you help that association's audience solve? And you also have to think about, is it, and this is kind of the macro level difference between a content speaker versus a purely motivational / inspirational speaker. And there's room for both, and both can have very successful careers. But a content speaker is hired for very different reasons than a motivational, inspirational, and again, for our two magicians know this, former magicians, that there is entertainment value in the room at the event, which is hugely important. And then there's take-home value, which is what the content speakers usually bring. Now, again, no one's a pure content speaker because you'll never get booked. And no one's a purely inspirational, motivational because you'll never get booked. There's always a layer of content in every inspirational, motivational message. And there better be a layer of inspiration and motivation in every content message. So it's relevance that I would lead with.
I would just say that, and I agree with everything my friend David says. I think I'm going to be sick of saying that sentence. The way to get paid speaking engagements are to ask for an opportunity. I have something that I say all the time. You risk a yes every time you ask for something. Are you willing to take the risk? I think that a plan is to take your expertise, your defined expertise, and put it in a targeted area. It's the only way, I think, to formulate some kind of a plan to put yourself out in the marketplace, to give you some direction about who should you call, what should you say, what will they want from you. I inevitably get approached by people, I'm sure we all do, who say, I've got a great message on customer service. And I will say, where do you think that message would make sense? And they'll say, anyone who wants a great culture of service would love my program. And I always reply, well, go call everybody and let me know if any of them are interested. You can't do that. That's why so many people get overwhelmed and they quit the business.
Yeah.
If you pick out an industry like financial services, something I used to speak to on when I spoke on sales, and then pick out markets within the financial services industry, like banks, credit unions, accounting firms. Then start your approach regionally if you want to. I tell my clients, start regionally. Where's a good hour or 90-minute direct flight from your airport? I think it's a great strategy for people who don't want to spend half their life in airports these days. But you need to ask for the opportunity. You need to approach specific people. You need to be outcome oriented in what you do. And I work with my clients on creating what I call a positioning statement, a concept and outcome statement of working with you to open the door.
Yeah. This is great. And There was a question earlier in the chat about how do you price, like, the pricing question, which is, a pretty big question. It certainly depends on industry and your expertise and your experience level and all this stuff. I think David would probably say 4,500 is your starting point, right? Minimum. That's like paid professional speaker starting point. And I agree to that. And some other folks here I saw in the chat earlier were saying, well, $10,000, you have to be a celebrity or you have to be famous to get. No, you don't. $10,000 is not enough. None of us are famous outside of, these tiny little circles
let me just
here.
say something. I'm a contrarian on this. I don't think $4,500 is a minimum at all. Well, David, I know, David, you're shocked. I think that when you're first getting opportunities, look, if you want to be a speaker, you need to speak. You need to get out there. You need to be in front of people who may be able to hire you, whether you're getting paid for that specific opportunity at all. Then this is what I did. I went to every chamber of commerce within 200 miles of my home. I got no money. I asked for testimonials from them if they liked what I did. Then I leveraged those testimonials. I put them on social media. Here's a real hard plan, folks. Put them on social media, put them on your website. And here's something interesting. The people who read them on social media and looked at them on my website assumed I was paid for what I did because I'm asking them to pay me. So, but I think getting started, you don't have to ask for $4,500. I do think it's a mistake to undervalue. It's a huge mistake to overinflate your value.
Yeah, so let's follow up on that. And Tim, I want to get you into this conversation because what Lois just mentioned, Tim, you would call the snowball method. And obviously you can get Tim's book to get more about this. But I think, so Lois, what you just mentioned is I would call that, I would rather do waived fee than low fee. So what you just said was waived fee, essentially, right? You're going to speak for free. You're going to waive your fee in exchange for testimonials.
Not. I will waive my fee
Bingo.
In certain circumstances. But if I'm just starting out and somebody wants to pay me $1,500 to eat chicken for lunch and do a 20-minute program, I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to bemoan the fact that I'm getting $1,500 to do it.
Yeah, and so part of the problem is that we've got 75 or 100 people that are all watching this, and some of the people have never been a paid speech before. Some people are getting 2,500 and can't figure out how to get $5,000. Some people are getting 5 and can't figure out how to get 15. That's why the pricing question is so tricky. David, I would say your answer to this is really just about people who are professional speakers and just want to be, like, are already in the I'm a professional speaker, right? You need to be at a certain price.
I mean, it's funny. As soon as Lois said this, I'm thinking about all the chambers, all the ladies auxiliary, all the church basements, all the career transition groups. I did a ton of that. Now, at the same time, there's practice and then there's the game.
Yes.
And you need a lot of practice. And then, but when you start playing the game, I think there's also this false sense of, well, I'm just starting out. So let's say that you're to have a 20-year career as some amazing corporate executive. You come out, you talk to Tim, you talk to Brian, you talk to Lois. It's like, well, since I'm just starting out, should I charge like $1,200? Like, no, you got 20 years of track record. You need to be $7,500, $10,000, $12,000 right out of the gate. So it does, your mileage will vary. But I will tell you the other thing that's popping in my mind is the reason I was doing all those free gigs is because I had a coaching component, right? I had a training component. So when I did something free at the chamber, I got training contracts from QVC and PNC Bank and all of these places here. And it was regional at first here in the Philadelphia suburbs. But literally tens of thousands of dollars of training contracts came from speaking for free. So I think the answer, I think all of us would have some variation of, does speaking for free or waived fee, does that have a place? Yes, but like Lois said, strategically. Don't do it for no reason, or don't do it because you can't find a decision maker. Do it because you know that your next couple of paid clients are hiding in that audience.
Yeah. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
What David said is what I meant to say.
Yeah. But, Tim, jump in here for us, Tim, because you can speak really well to the, you've helped a lot of I'm just getting started speakers get to high fees. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, leads raise fees. End of sentence. If you have enough leads coming in the door and you can say no to the gigs that you do not want or are not a perfect fit for, or for whatever reason, hey, maybe you're booked, guess what? That's when your fee starts going up. Supply and demand. Now, hey, listen, I've been digging through my computer. I did find this old document, and we've since updated this. I haven't found I have an infographic that I based off of this, but I just want to share with you real quick lead sources, right? And we don't have any lead. Maybe I can't share my screen here. Maybe OBS is farting out on me. Well, unfortunately, maybe
Can you provide? I'm going to send an email to all registrants after this. Can you get it to me, Tim, and I'll put it there, or no?
Well, I don't. Yeah, this is not something I want to go in depth. This is obviously something we use to work with my clients and whatnot. But I will share it here, and if you want to screen grab it real quick, try using this share screen feature. And how do I bring it in? There it is.
There you go.
So it starts at the bottom. This is where a lot of speakers start. They try to find something where they're going out there and doing cold outreach, right? This is, for a lot of speakers, a waste of time. And the higher up the list we go, the higher the likelihood of qualified leads actually turning into a gig. This is by no means an extensive, comprehensive list, right? But if you break it down, like there's only two ways people can find you. Either they find you or you find them. And if you start really looking at it sort of from a scientific approach or a logical approach or whatever, you've got, for example, the top of the list is when people find you because of your reputation, right? People, Bill Clinton's not out there doing, first of all, looking for speeches or doing cold outreach, right? But people are finding him and giving him hundreds of thousands of dollars for a speech. Your reputation precedes you. Famous people get gigs. That's not fair for us non-famous people. But there are some things that you can do. And to answer your question, Brian, when we get started, there is this sweet spot of quality of leads, but still accessible, right? You can't just step into celebrity mode, but you can be a celebrity to a group of 10 people in the back of a restaurant. You can be in the front of the room, which is what I call networking on steroids, because I will never, ever, ever, David, I got your email the other day about networking. Never, ever, ever will I do in-person networking events unless I'm in the front of the room or unless I am the unique unicorn in the room. So heck yeah, I'm going to go to an event planner certification training program, right? And I'm going to be among a bunch of event planners, and I'm going to be the unique unicorn in the room who can speak to the other side of that transaction. So, a lot of people say work so hard on their website, SEO, paid ads, speaker listings. I mean, that's a little bit down the list. Get yourself in front of audiences, leverage those appearances, and turn those gigs into gigs. We do 46 things at every single gig to turn gigs into gigs. That has expanded over the years. But we also take stuff out that doesn't work and put in stuff that does work. And when you got a list of 46 systematic things that you do at every single gig, you can understand why, when I started, I did 48 gigs in my first month, and then really has snowballed since then. And obviously COVID hit and threw some wrenches in that gears. But at the end of the day, to answer your question, leads raise fees, get leads in the door at whichever level you are at. There is plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. And it's so interesting. Back to I got the CRM tools question here, which I'm guessing we don't need to spend too much time on. But we'll come to that in a second. So, because I think that's the stuff that people get hung up on and don't need to. But to that question earlier, or what David was saying about when we started with this 4,500, and then Lois countered with, well, we can speak for free and you can get testimonials, like things that all of us have done. I think, Tim, you really nailed it when you pulled it all together, or maybe it was David now, talking about the fact that some people come into my programs, and like David, you said, they have 20 years in an industry already, and now they want to go speak on what they've learned from that. You're not starting out at $1,000, because it has nothing to do. People think, well, I haven't spoken, I haven't been a keynote speaker. that's not what they're buying. They're buying your expertise, your content, your whatever. So I want those. I'm like, no. We don't have to work you up to 4,500 to 7,500 or 10 grand. I've started people at 10 grand because they have the expertise to back it up. But if a lot of people are selling themselves as a speaker, and so they think they have to start at zero because they don't have fancy videos of them speaking on big stages. Does that
Brian,
hold this
can
all
I
in?
just say something? To me, we need to talk about the value of your expertise in a specific market. That's
Let's
the
do that.
value. That's the pricing question. What is the value of my expertise in different places?
Yeah.
I
So
learned
go
something
ahead.
from David too. And David, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had taught me about the value of solving business problems. And also as a speaker, we also solve event problems, right?
That's
And
right.
we look at those two different ways that we can add value to events. And as a magician, man, I really leaned into that. I can be just an entertaining, yes, I have a message. Yes, I have content. Yes, we do, in-depth programs for clients that are much more business problem focused, because I believe, and David, maybe you just speak to this, solving a little bit of both is a great way to, obviously the way to get value in return is to deliver value. And if you look at all of the different ways and all of the different pain points that we can touch on as speakers or service providers, then, the numbers start going up.
Yes, for sure. So one thing, again, this is about just knowing, like Lois said, knowing your value. When you look at this as far as what you really bring to an event or what you really bring to a company, I think most speakers can identify with one of three buckets, and maybe you're a little bit of each. So there are speakers who are primarily teacher. There's the teacher model of speaking. There is the entertainer model. So the magicians, the musicians, the illusionists, right? So entertainment value. And then there's the catalysts. And the catalysts are the ones that might be doing consulting or coaching, but they get you into action. So I always said, and you can do like a combination. When I assess myself, I am 70% teacher, 20% catalyst, and 10% entertainer. I used to say 70-30. They go, no, you're okay with, you're somewhat entertaining. So it's like now 70-20-10. So the events and the kinds of opportunities, right? So 70% teacher, by the way, is never a keynoter. 70% teacher is always going to be seminar, workshop, consulting, coaching, right? And so if you look at your strengths and you figure out, well, where can I plug in either with the business value or the event value that Tim is talking about, and then you cross-reference that with what am I really good at? What's my ratio of teacher versus entertainer versus catalyst? You will find the right kinds of venues and the right kinds of events that would tremendously value what you do.
I love that. And I think Tim and I would both tell you, as folks who came from entertainment, Tim, I'm pretty sure you did the same thing that I did. When I first came into speaking, I leaned really hard on the entertainment. I came in and I was like 80% magician, 20% content, because I actually didn't have that much content expertise. I had a TED Talk that accidentally went viral. People were like, we want you to talk about that. And I remember thinking, I have 14 minutes and 11 seconds to say on that topic. And I said it in the TED Talk because it was a one-off, I thought. And so I was like, they're like, can you do that, but for an hour? And I was like, sure, because you're offering me a lot of money. And I figured out how to, over years, I ended up kind of 50-50ing it eventually, magic and whatever. And now it's like, it depends on what I'm getting asked to do. If I'm getting asked to keynote, it's going to be 60% entertainment, which is not just magic. It's magic, it's interaction, it's high energy, it's storytelling. It can be dramatic. It doesn't have to be funny. And 40%. But if I get brought in to do a 3-hour workshop, it's going to be probably 70% teaching and 20%, entertainment, so you can kind of find your way. Like, Tim, did you find your way like that, like into different zones?
Yeah, I would ask every client, people bring me in for a lot of different reasons. If you had to put a number to it, what percentage of it do you want me to be up there entertaining your audience? And what percentage do you want me to be bringing this message? And nobody ever said 100% either way.
Right.
Also, nobody ever said 50% right down the middle. People were
Yep.
usually in the 60-40, 70-30 range with occasional 80-20. But usually I can't believe and I can't overstate the importance and the value, at least in my world, the circles I run, the clients I deal with, again, main stage, keynotes, conferences, events, that kind of thing. The value they place on entertainment is unbelievable. And I think the pendulum has swung over the last 10, 20 years back and forth between, people who we used to have a saying like, people don't hire speakers, they hire experts who speak. And that's a great saying. And then I've literally had clients say to me when I'm booked, would you like a referral? They say, yeah, but none of those Harvard Business School grads, none of those experts. I've even had people, I don't want to, dump on anybody's organization or anything, but people just specifically request non-expert people because in the perception and the mindset of the buying audience, those people are boring. They come with data and information and facts. And if they don't have the value that placed on that information, then yeah, the entertainment piece is going to be is going to win the day. So again, that's just sort of my circles that I run in, but I can't overstate the value of entertainment.
Yeah, this is great. So let's, because we got 15 minutes here, and David, I know you have a hard cutoff at the hour, so we appreciate you being here. We want to get all your wisdom while we're here. Let's speak to some follow-up strategies for Jennifer. The energy tends to fall off after a talk for me, and I'm unsure how to leverage. So like you crush it, which is what a lot of people think. If I just crush it, then I'll get all the referrals and all the gigs, and it basically never happens. They go, oh my God, it was amazing, and then nothing ever happens. So what do you do? I think all four of us have different ways to leverage this. David, what would you say about leveraging a speaking opportunity?
Buy Tim's book and write down the 46 things to do before, during, and after each event to get more events. But the number one thing, before I throw it over, is it doesn't happen by accident. So plan for it, bake it into your sales process. That what are you doing before? So maybe it's going to be an audience survey. What do you do during and on site to connect with the right people to make sure that you have some follow-up afterwards? Are you booking the debrief call or the follow-up call before the event? Here's what I found, and maybe everyone else has a similar experience. You can do an amazing job. They've paid you tens of thousands of dollars. The moment the event is over, you are chopped liver. Even if you did a home run job, they genuinely loved you. It's like, Tim who? Brian what? Oh, that 20 grand? Oh, yeah. No, I don't have time to talk to you. But you loved me. You paid me. It was all tens on the evaluation form. They just get sucked back in the tsunami of their regular day-to-day, and it's mystifying. But we become invisible the moment the gig is over unless you put things in place planfully to make sure that you've done the right things before, during, and after so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I want to toss this over, but I'm going to share just a quick example of this that just happened. Like 2 weeks ago, I did a virtual keynote. It was 30 minutes. It was a proper keynote, just me here doing it virtually, just someone overseas. Did it. I literally had to be out the door within 5 minutes of ending it to drive somewhere to do a consulting gig. So between the 5 minutes that it took me to get out the door, I got an email from the organizer that was like, oh my God, that was amazing. You crushed it. It was exactly what we were hoping for. And while I was getting in the car before starting the 3-hour drive, I emailed back, thanks so much. Would it make sense for us to schedule a follow-up call to talk about next steps? And she goes, that would be amazing. And we booked that call less than 10 days from that point. I did that call, and now we're talking about a multiple 5-figure follow-up consulting gig. But it's because I got to them immediately and put something on the calendar in that moment. If I had waited 2 weeks and reached out, they would have been busy and on to new things. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, totally. Well, or even arrange before the event. So you did it right after. Say, hey, the event is August 17th. Why don't you and I book a follow-up call for the following Tuesday, not Monday, because they're coming back to all kinds of crazy stuff. Tuesday, and we'll debrief, we'll look at the evaluations, and we'll figure out the next steps from there. So something like that, where you literally just put it on their calendar and it's waiting for them in the office when they get back.
Yeah.
And, because before the event, you're the most important person in their world. Oh my God, do you have your plane tickets? Is the hotel okay? Is everything good? You're definitely going to be here, right? They're freaking out about you before. You're a nobody the second it's over.
Yeah, I think that's true. They're moving on to their next thing. As you need to move on, we need to move on to our next thing.
Yeah.
And I agree with David. I think that these are things, if you can set them up in advance, really allow you to really leverage the heck out of the great job that you just did. And one of the things that I developed totally by accident, I should say this was a strategic thing, but totally by accident. When I used to do sales programs, in my follow-up call, I called it a follow-up thank you call. Loved speaking with you, speaking for your group. I was honored. I would love a testimonial. What associations do you belong to? Because they might be a fit for my message. And then if you do consulting, coaching, have coursework, a membership group, anything like that, how do we take a next step to actually implement the ideas, tactics, and techniques I discussed on the platform? And that started to be a great ticket for me. And it was my phrase that pays. Do you think it would make sense for me to work with your sales managers to actually apply these things? Then an element of accountability comes in, which can be irresistible. If it's not irresistible, that's a good sign they might not be fun to work with anyway.
Tim, you want to I want to kick it over to you for a second here, kind of a follow-up on all of this, which is speaker reels, testimonials, social media follow-up. Tim, you've got a lot to say on the marketing and packaging and things that speakers spend too much time on and shouldn't be, and not enough time on and should be. Yeah,
and of course, I think our fellow panelists have a lot to say on these topics as well. They are immensely important in terms of again, I use the term packaging all the time because it is a game of positioning and perceptions. One thing I learned as a magician, Brian, perception is reality, right? So if we can manage the perception, not fake it till we make it, but put our best foot forward. I like to say everybody is like a song. We just got to get the mix right. And a lot of people have assets that they don't value or that they undervalue that we can, of course, highlight. So, I think it all boils down to not the assets themselves, but rather what they are saying and how they are saying, what they say about you, the speaker, and about your message and about the value that you deliver. Now, in terms of the debrief call, I love that process. It is such a challenge. We always do it. That's one of our 46 things, is to book a debrief call in advance. And I also like the term implementation call. I might be borrowing that. We'll experiment with that a little bit. But Lois, I don't know if you want to talk about Talkadot. I see you in Arel's sessions. I think that's a great tool to bring into those debrief sessions, and they are always blown away by the actual information and data that I provide for them.
Talkadot is a brand new software program that really makes it easy for you to leverage. And I got in early on this, interested. I just saw somebody demonstrate it, and I thought, you have to be kidding. And so I've been looking into it. It's literally talk.a, and you can go to their website and get all the information that you want. Thank you. But I think it's absolutely one of the neatest tools that has come out in years that allows you to capture feedback in the moment. So we don't have to hope somebody will talk to us after an event. In the moment, it allows you to literally take that feedback, put it on social media with a click. It also allows you, while you're in the event, before you leave, to share audience feedback with the decision maker. Not individual things people might have said, but say 98% of the people here in the audience said they would like to hear from me again.
I actually just did a very specific testimonial. I had a lead come in yesterday, and I put together my, again, standard lead response, incoming lead, how are you available, how much do you charge, kind of thing. You obviously want to get them on the phone. But as part of creating social proof at that critical moment, I did bring in a very specific, like, hey, just did a gig in the Bahamas. This was the specific feedback from a specific audience member. They are talking exactly to the results and outcome that your entire event is themed around. So it is such a flexible tool for leveraging events. I think at the end of the day, you gather a lot of information, a lot of email addresses and that sort of thing, generate a lot of new relationships, referrals. It has been phenomenal. We got 368 leads that we had to pour through at a gig that we did back in January. We're still just
gonna have to Tim, I saw you and Lois both post about it at some point, and I haven't gone. That's something for me to look at in the next week. I'm gonna have to get there.
I don't use it for every single gig. There are pros and cons and pluses and minuses. I still use my form.
Love the form.
The form. Hey, listen, you know what? We got a lot of experts in the room, in the chat box as well. I've been seeing a lot of names that I'm just it's crazy. Any one of those, could be plucked and put right into the room here. I just want to do a quick shout out. We were asking about videos, especially, and there's Chris West right in the chat. So I don't know of anybody better in the world at putting together speaker demo reels and understanding how and why they work and packaging messages. So
awesome.
Lots of cool. If that is the Chris West, then there you have it.
Awesome. Fantastic. David, maybe you can talk about credentials, CSP, before you got to jump off.
So I'm probably the least qualified because I am a certified speaking professional. I will tell you from a marketing and a sales angle, I know this is public, but sorry, it's true. Useless. Unless, and this is my story and lots of other certified speaking professionals would probably agree with this. It gives you that we talked earlier about imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? What should I charge? Am I serious? I don't consider myself a speaker. Well, you go through that certified speaking professional process, which is arduous record keeping, 5 to 10 years of your life, number of gigs, testimonials, peer-reviewed video. You are no longer asking those questions about yourself. Like, am I any good? Am I really a speaker, or should I do something else? So I am loud and proud about certified speaking professional. It's on the cover of 2 of my books. I didn't have it in 2013 when the first book came out, but you look at all of the CSPs, Mark Hunter, CSP, on the cover of every one of Mark Hunter's books. We do it for the person sitting in this chair. You don't do it for bureaus. You don't do it for clients. You don't do it for associations. They don't know. They don't care. That's not our problem, really. It's sort of NSA's problem. Again, this isn't being recorded, is it? It's sort of NSA's problem. It's not our problem, and you do it for your own reasons. That's my 2 cents. David Newman, CSP.
I would also say, and I think that's a really valid point, David, because so much of this is a head game for sure. But I do think it's incumbent upon those who have a CSP to explain what the difference is, why they got it, to make that clear to people visiting your website. I'm not saying you're going to bring that into a sales conversation necessarily, but it can be a differentiator if you define it well to your market.
Isn't that true of so many things, Lois? It's like, yes. It's anything that you have that's a differentiator, that's like the differentiator. You just need to do a good job of clearly and quickly explaining why that's a differentiator for you. And you can do that in a sales conversation or any networking conversation or call that you're having with somebody. You can say, so I actually have this. Here's what it is. And here's why that makes me different than people you might be talking to. Like at this particular event you're having, these are the things you're dealing with, and I have this background, and here's why that background would be really useful at this event, right? As long as you can do that, I think, David, that point of going through the process for you to feel confident. I think a lot of credentials in lots of fields are like that. They do a whole lot more for your own mindset than they do for your marketing. When I hear people like, oh, I feel like, honestly, I mean, I coach people on giving TED Talks, right? And people want to do a TED Talk because they think having the TED logo on their website is going to get them booked. Like, not anymore, just 2 million TED Talks, right? Maybe that was true 10 years ago. So I say, no, do you want to spend 18 months of your life going through this incredibly difficult process to give this talk? So, hey, David, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your
team.
time.
Have fun.
Thank you. So, it's like, do you really want to go through 18 months and 200 hours of your life to do a TEDx talk, to put that logo on your website? It's not going to do the marketing for you that you think it is on its own. You can leverage it by explaining why that matters and making sure people understand it. And the process of going through it makes you a much more confident expert or thought leader in your own topic because of what it takes to produce a talk at that level on that stage.
I'm blown away. I saw a chat way in the beginning, about I don't feel like a speaker yet. I've done no matter how many gigs I do, I still don't quite feel like a speaker. I'm scrolling through it. I probably am misquoting it, but I can't find the exact question. But man, oh man, we have as humans a tendency to want to wait for that outside validation before we either accept we are the thing, feel like we belong with that title or what have you. And I've seen this in author circles. What makes me an author? Is it because I'm published? And no, writers write. Like, go write. Speakers speak. Go speak. Do not, as long as it's not about outside validation, right? As long as that's not what your motivation is or your goal or whatever. As long as it is indeed about gaining a competitive advantage, maybe personal goals are great, reaching and attaining a personal goal, fantastic. But man, oh man, if it is about outside validation, that someone has to come along and take their magic freaking fairy wand and tap you on the head and say, thou art a speaker. Don't wait for that crap. Go out, do your thing. I'll tell you, as a magician, I never hung out in the magic conventions and, waiting for, I was out there working and doing gigs. You won't find me at the NSA chapter meetings, nothing against NSA. I am just someone out who's out there doing my gigs and, doing the thing that I want to do, sharing the message that I want to share. And,
I would just say as a contrarian, you'll find me at those NSA meetings, hanging around people who are doing what I want to do, sharing their success strategies with me, and constantly learning. That's exactly where you'll find
That's the value of the NSA, right? That's the value of the NSA. That's the value of rooms like this. I've seen some really smart speakers in there saying, hey, reach out to me, connect with me. I recognize I'm in a room full of like-minded people and I want to up my game, right? And be around people who are like-minded and will challenge me and are just in doing this lonely life of speaking with other speakers, right? Therein lies the value of NSA. Also, their education is on point. I've been a member, right? I've been a member, and I think I'm still a member, quite frankly. But again, I think we have to make intelligent choices about why we're doing what we're doing, and it just kind of I don't know. I don't want to say broke my heart to see someone say, "Am I a speaker?" Like, I've been speaking, but am I a speaker? So yeah, I think go do the thing that you want to do. Go make the difference. Best advice I ever got, right? I'll contrast the worst advice I ever got and the best advice I ever got in the speaking industry. And the worst advice I ever got in the speaking industry came from my speakers bureau, who said, when I said to him, I want to be your most booked speaker, what do I have to do? And he said to me, pay your dues. It just takes time. You have to wait. I'm like, wait for what? Best advice I ever got was from James Malinchak. He said, speakers have a message. They want to help people. They get on stage and they help people, right? They don't care about holding their hand in a perfect upside down, inverted half steeple body language position. They have a message. They get on stage and they help people. And yes, oh my gosh, best practices, learn from professionals, right? Do all, but again, go help some people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? When you lead, and Kurt's following up on that and saying it's disheartening to hear that you have to just pay your dues. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, obviously you got to go like you got to get better at the thing that you do. Like
There
everybody
is a
needs to get
process.
better.
There is a process, but it doesn't have to take 10 years. Right?
That's it.
As long as you know what the steps are, you can do that in 18 months, right? It doesn't take 5 years to get on a keynote stage.
No, you can get on a keynote stage and I mean, God, you can get on a keynote stage 3 weeks from now if you're talking to the right person and you have value to offer. I mean, it doesn't matter. And I've seen that happen with my clients. Yeah, go ahead,
can I
Lois.
say something? I'm cautious about constantly using the word keynote.
Yeah.
Realize that the words keynote, breakout, workshop, all of those words, there's great ambiguity even in this industry about how those things are defined. I tell my clients, call everything you do programs, and then let the client tell you what they want to call it. And, an interesting phenomenon happened after COVID. Speakers who do a lot of keynotes were being asked, we're being told, we want to bring you in to do a keynote, but we want it to be highly engaging, which is not how a keynote is defined in any way. So that's what I mean. Don't let these terms mess you up. Plus, the more inclusive terms you use, the more opportunities you might find for yourself.
Tim and I both thumbs up that. And by the way, that is one of the biggest takeaways, Lois, when I saw you speak and you said that, and it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and you said, call everything a program, because I was a keynote speaker. That was all over my website at the time, keynote speaker, because I came from Magic. I changed it. Everything was a program and just had a title, subtitle, description of learning outcomes. And sometimes people go, can we have that program, but we only have 40 minutes? And I go, great. Yes. And they go, we need like an interactive workshop. Does that program work for that? Yes, it does. We need 6 months of consulting. Absolutely. It's just a different way of taking my message. And you have to be able to do each of those things.
The keys to the kingdom in speaking is making sure that you are doing exactly what your client wants you to do. Asking the questions up front, pre-program, that set you and them up for success. What do they want to accomplish in this meeting? I remember, I bet all of us have had this experience. What's the most important thing you want to accomplish in this meeting? I want you to end on time. I've been told that, which is only slightly disheartening. It didn't put me into a deep funk. But knowing what's important to that person who's hiring you and your ability to deliver it in the context that they want it delivered, it's all about fit.
Yeah, and I love this from Catherine, asking questions up front for learning outcomes achieved. My favorite question, I'm guessing we all ask a version of it when I'm on a call with a client. Usually this is after I've booked it, but I'm doing a pre-conference call or a pre-event call. I just ask them some version of the popping champagne question. So, okay, it's, a week after the conference and we're popping champagne because it was an unbelievable, you can't even believe what a success it was. How do you know that we should be popping champagne? I ask a version of that question and you get crazy different answers from different people. I asked it once at a conference to the president of the company, the human resources director, and the marketing director, 3 different people, 3 different calls, got from the same company for the same event. All on the panel. I got 3 completely different answers from the same company for the same event. One of them said, all I want is to see people having a great conversation at lunch after your keynote. And my brain was like, great, all I got to do is give them something to talk about at lunch. Easy, I can put that in. Okay, the next person said, I'll know that it was a success because people will be using something from your presentation that week at work. Great, I'm going to give them an action step that's stupid easy that everybody can remember. No problem. And the president said, I'll know because of the feedback forms. That's what the president of the company said. I'll know because of the feedback forms. So I used one of Tim's techniques that you can get in Tim's book to make sure that they put on the feedback forms exactly what I wanted them to put. So in one presentation, I just did those 3 easy things. And each of those 3 people from the conference could not believe the success. And it's like, it's not magic. I asked them what would be successful and did the thing that they said. It's not that hard. What do we have here? Anybody else
My favorite answer to that question is people just saying, I just want the audience to be off their phone for 5 seconds. Like, that's how we'll know that they're actually engaged with the speaker. I can't believe how many times when I switched from magic to speaking, that the feedback that I started getting, and it was positive feedback in the mind of the person who wrote it down. They said, wow, not boring.
Yeah. It's amazing actually how low the bar can be for giving a great presentation. Yeah. There's a whole lot of that out there. Like, we just want it to be not boring. Like that, I don't know how it happens, but there's a lot of people who've had speakers that are just boring or didn't say anything that was new or interesting or didn't start a conversation.
Well, that's
So I
you know, that isn't always the speaker's problem. That is the person who hired them's problem. I don't think they did due diligence, and that's all I'll say about that.
Don't be chairman of the board.
Love that, Megan.
Yes, it is sad, but it also makes our job even easier. And Teresa says, yeah, psychologically, it helps the event planner know that they had a win too. Yeah, exactly. I love it. So I feel like things are dwindling down, though we still have 62 people watching live. This has been wild. I'm going to put that that banner up again for everybody. We are going to send a follow-up email with all the links and all the everything, and the replay is going to go out to you, but also go buy Lois's book and Tim's book and David's book. Buy all three of them. Buy them today. Not only will you not regret it, it will be everything that you need to get started, and then connect with all the panelists and connect with each other here. Look at all the people. Like Tim said, there are a lot of professional speakers in this chat right now. And what's amazing about that is they're all here and they're learning one extra nugget, and just getting a little bit better. I learned a ton today while I was just sitting here enjoying this. So this was great. Anybody, Lois, Tim, you have any kind of final words, last thing that you feel like you need to say? I feel like we've said a lot.
I was just going to say, I'm just going to repeat something I said earlier. You risk a yes every time you ask for an opportunity. Are you willing to take the chance? So go out and ask for what you want and leverage the hell out of each successful engagement.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Bingo.
Tim, parting thoughts?
Yeah, get around speakers. Like a lot of the chat room has been, asking questions about that. Mike, you brought up a great point. We do a summit every year. We try to get speakers together, and it's a lot of fun. Number one, but also we make lifelong friends. I think I have a lot of close friends in my life who are speakers that I met through this industry. It's a great industry. It is full of people who actually have a heart to help others. Yeah, we make a ton of money, but that's because we try to give a ton of value. And that really, to me, is what stands out about the speaking industry. Keep doing that and you can't go wrong.
Fantastic. We've got lots of great takeaways here. And Teresa is asking, when is the summit? Is this a Tim question?
Yeah, we're still doing, this is all planning stuff for the summit. It's in August in the Boston area, and nextstagesummit.com just to get on the update list.
Dude, Boston area. Count me in, man.
It's happening.
Drive up to Boston. Awesome.
Finally get the venue booked. It's a sweet spot. We're going to have a lot of fun.
It's great. All right. Well, listen, Tim, Lois, David, who's not here anymore, thank you so much for all of this. Super, super honored to have you. And we're going to sign off and say goodbye. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Tim.